Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time Summer Shorts. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dee. And for our summer series, we're recapping single episode stories.
In this one, we're going to be discussing women and crime. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the June 11th, 2024 episode that is called Karen Reed.
If you haven't listened yet, you'll find a link to Women in Crime, the Karen Reed episode, in our show notes.
All right, Dee, let's jump in. Let's talk about Karen Reed. I feel like we should start with just a quick recap of what this case is, although I feel like if you're listening to us talk about it, you probably already know. I feel like this is one of the biggest true crime stories going on over these last couple of years.
Yeah, we can do a quick recap. Basically, it's a woman, Karen Reed, who has been on trial for the murder of her then boyfriend or fiance, what's his name? John O'Keefe.
John O'Keefe.
Who's also a policeman. And so she's on trial for this, but the big question mark is that her defense is basically saying that it seems like there was a shady involvement from maybe the police, maybe other law enforcement who were involved and who were trying to pin this on her when it was actually, this is all a cover up for someone else in law enforcement who had murdered him. So that's a kind of a synopsis. Is that a fair synopsis?
I think that's a fair synopsis, although I feel like you could do a synopsis that lasts about 3 hours on this case. There is so much story here.
Is that a synopsis, though?
I mean, this has been going on for like 3 years. So, yeah, but we're not going to do that.
Okay, so exactly. So that was our really quick synopsis. What I wanted to ask you, Jeff, if you don't mind me starting off here, it was a bit weird listening to this episode because the episode is from 2022? 2024, but we heard in June of 2025 the verdict of Karen Reed's case, and so of the trial, and so it was kind of weird hearing them discuss it and the ins and outs of the case, wherein I don't know a lot about the trial. I didn't follow it too closely, but it was kind of interesting hearing it, knowing the outcome.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. So let's just say what happened after this episode. If all your context for this is the Women in Crime episode. So yeah, this came out in 2024. The first trial, although they alluded it to not being sure when it would start, but it did end up starting in the middle of 2024, and it ended up in a mistrial. And then the second trial happened in kind of the first half of 2025. So yeah, like Dee said, that just wrapped up in June. The outcome, so the first trial ended in a mistrial. The second trial ended in basically not guilty pleas. I have it here. So basically the jurors acquitted Karen Reed of second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. She did get convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol, for which she got 1 year of probation. So that's where we stand in the middle of 2025. It seems like there's going to be more stuff to come. I believe there's a civil suit pending from the family of John O'Keefe. But then also on the other side of this, Karen Reed is apparently working on a book, a film script, taking advantage of all the media. Although some of that is probably because she has reportedly over $5 million in legal fees that she has to pay back. Yeah, she's got a lot. She had a lot of lawyers for a long time. So yeah, that's where we are today, or as we're recording this.
Yeah, interesting. So I have so many questions.
Because I have questions too.
Okay, I don't know if I want to start with the case or I want to start with the podcast.
Let's start with the case.
Okay. Do you think she did it?
Oh boy, let's start with the big question. And
I'm kind of going on vibes because I just heard theirs. I really have not read anything else. I've seen the odd snippet on Instagram, but I haven't dug deep into this case.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I don't know that I have a more informed. Well, I have certainly more information just because I have a lot of family and friends in the Boston area where this has been sort of all consuming. And this comes up when I'm talking to them. And I feel like people feel, I said this in the preview, people feel so strongly about this.
Mm-hmm.
But my sense from the people I talk to, it's really split down the middle. So I have an opinion. Do you want me to share my opinion?
Yeah, but before you say that, what your opinion is, I do want to hear your feelings on this. But they
Do
do
you?
say that in, yeah, I'm sure at some point. We'll get back to that. They do say, the hosts say this, like, regardless of the outcome of the trial, really, will they ever know?
Yeah.
Because there was just, and they said that at the start, they were like, there's just so much reasonable doubt on either side.
And that I thought was really interesting on this podcast because I think that is the thing I probably agree most with, that there was no version of this trial that was going to be prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. If she had been convicted, I feel like that would have been, I don't know. That seemed far-fetched to me. It seemed like she was always going to be either going to be another mistrial or she was going to be found not guilty. I think to me that felt sort of inevitable. If she did it, I feel like the most likely scenario is that she was super drunk and it was more accident than intent. Like it was not premeditated. But I also feel like this was one of those situations, we've talked about this before, where the cops really screwed up the investigation left and right. So many mistakes from the investigator having, who should have recused himself, had a clear conflict of interest, had a relationship with the family where the house where this happened. And I don't think they mentioned this in the podcast, but some of my other research mentioned like that investigator also was under a cloud of sending some really disparaging texts about Karen Reed, called her some real nasty things. And so just sort of left and right, this investigation was botched in a way that, yeah, you just can't know. Wait, do you have an opinion? Do you think she did it? You think she did it? You think she did it?
It just, there's something.
That's your that's your guilty face.
Yeah, I don't know. And do you know what caught me most, I think, in this podcast, that I was like, oh, I do this and I know people do this, and I actually have, this is one of my questions for you because I know my answer. They were saying how they were unsure whether she was going to take the stand,
Right.
because I can't remember the phrase. They were saying she seems to come across, was it indignant? Was that the word they were using?
It was something along those lines, yeah.
That she comes across kind of like defensive and kind of maybe what I got from it was that she comes across not very likable.
Not sympathetic.
And and not sympathetic, and that maybe it wouldn't be a good idea for her to take the stand. And I was like, oh, is that why I don't like her? Like, I haven't read a lot about this, but I've seen her. I've seen her on like stories or on clips. Like if the news is on, like, as I said, like I really haven't looked into this a huge amount. This podcast is the most I've heard about it, but I didn't get a good vibe from her. And maybe that's what was happening. And like, even in the podcast, I didn't feel like they were biased in one way or the other, and how I did feel like they were pretty impartial with how they were telling the story. But I don't know, I just felt like she was clinging on to things. It just felt like,
Wait, who was clinging on to things?
Karen Reed was kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, I will say this on the flip side. So if I had to say one way or other, I would say she didn't do it, or at least she didn't do it intentfully. It was maybe an accident. But on the other side, I definitely think for this to be a conspiracy is real far-fetched. I just think, and I feel like this actually is what happens a lot of the time. I mean, going back to like maybe most famously the O.J. Simpson trial, where is the person guilty? Very likely, probably. But did the police screw up in trying to make sure that it seemed like that person was guilty? 100%. Yeah. And both those things can be true. The idea that he went into that house, they beat him up, threw him out of the house, left him in the snow to die. Like, what's their motive? Why? Why would they
It
have
doesn't
done
make
that?
any sense.
Why would they leave him to die right in front of their house?
Doesn't make any sense.
And I get the whole thing with, like, it seems like he had wounds from a dog attack. And yes, the thing about the dog disappearing, super shady seeming. How can they not track down this dog?
Yeah, but if you're going to get rid of the dog, but you're not going to get rid of him? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, it feels like the dog is the least of the issue here.
Well, and another thing, and this actually made me think of Lords of Death and some of the other podcasts we've covered, where you can be a real bad person who does some real bad things, but that doesn't mean you did this.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
you can be an asshole a lot of the time, but that doesn't mean you committed every crime that happens within a 20-foot radius of you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's these bits that we heard in this podcast that just don't make sense. Like the black eye. How does he get a black eye? Like,
But like the scratches, like what were her nails like? Like she looks like someone who's got like long fake nails.
I will, to your earlier point, I did watch like a 5 or 6 minute interview with her that was recorded between the two trials, and it was on a Boston news channel, because I wanted to hear her talk. And she did a little bit of the interview with her lawyer sitting right next to her, and a little bit without her lawyer sitting next to her. And I get what they're saying. There's a part of her that does not come across as particularly sympathetic, but there's a part of her that also sort of comes across as genuine, to me at least. And just this
I
person,
don't think you're the status quo though when it comes to being like the gen pop of how people like read people. And no, I
what do you mean?
I think you're more sympathetic to people, I think, than most people are.
Oh, that's 100% true. I'm not going to disagree with that. No, I'd be a terrible juror.
Yeah.
I've never been a juror. Have you been a juror?
No.
Do you want to be a juror?
It's hard to be called to be a juror when you're a teacher. So in Ireland, it was kind of hard. I never got called in Ireland, but because like there was a big shortage, like if you got called, your principal could be like, absolutely not. Like, who's gonna teach the kids? And here we're not allowed.
Interesting. It baffles me that I was called once, actually, when I lived in Canton, Massachusetts. Funny enough, but it was I couldn't, for whatever reason, I couldn't then, and that was 20 years ago, and I've never been.
Oh, and you've never been called?
No. Oh, I'm registered
That's
to vote.
mad.
I have a driver's license. Like, I'm on the books. I don't know. I have friends who've been called like many times.
Multiple times, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
Maybe they know. They're like, he's too sympathetic.
I
Won't work.
really want to see the best in people.
I'm aware. Yeah. Do you think you'd take the stand
If it was me in her shoes,
if it was you? Yeah.
I would want to. Yes, I would want to tell my story. Would you?
But do you think you would want to, but would you?
If it was up to me, yeah. I kind of think if I was innocent or guilty, I would want to control my own fate in that way. What about you?
I would want to, but because I'm a control freak.
There it is. That's the reason behind what I was saying.
I don't think, I think I'm a bit of a Karen Reid. I don't think I'd come across well. I think I'd come across defensive. So I don't think I'd do it.
What if there was tequila present in the courtroom? Would that make it better?
All the feelings would be left out there. Yeah, never had I a conversation I regretted in that case.
All right, let me ask you a question. I have some questions for you. Do you remember I have some questions for you? Rebecca
I think you've
Mackay?
mentioned it a couple of times.
No, the book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that book, which we talked about, I don't know, a year ago, more than a year ago.
Like that, yeah.
But that book was a true crime based novel. Like, it was a fiction book. And when we got to Turtle Boy, in
Hmm.
this story. That made me think of that book. And so I actually looked it up. It's like, wait, which came out first? So this book came out after that story broke.
Oh, interesting. So you
So I
think it was
feel
based on that?
I did. I spent a couple minutes Googling, didn't find a lot, but just in terms of the dates, yeah, the dates check out that Rebecca Mackay was potentially referencing the Turtle Boy thing. What do you think of the Turtle Boy bit?
I mean, it's kind of, I'm going to be an L one here, but it's very of our time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bandwagoner jumping on. I get it. I think there's a lot of good that can come from using platforms to engage younger generations in cases that usually they wouldn't be engaged in, or in politics, etc. But in this case, it feels like regardless of the outcome, there was a rush to judgment, and there is a rush to, well, there's obviously intimidation, which is what we're hearing in this podcast. Whether that's confirmed or not, I don't know. I think that's becoming more and more prevalent, and I think the issue becomes that the justice system doesn't get a chance to like play out the story, because sure, no juror is impartial then, because they've heard everything even before they step into the court. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I think oftentimes there's the system is often quite broken, and we've discussed that so many times before.
Yeah.
But this is a situation where I know he was on Karen Reid's side, but like, we don't know.
Do
We don't
you
know how many of those jurors were already biased by him. We don't know. And
Yeah.
is that fair? And as much as people are like, oh, Karen Reid, we have John O'Keefe, and two people that were never mentioned. They're mentioned once and never again in this podcast. And maybe that was for the best. John O'Keefe was raising his niece and nephew who had
Mm,
already gone through the trauma of losing both of their parents.
yeah.
Presumably they were still under 18 at this point. And then they lose their uncle, who was their guardian. Fuck's sake. Turtle Boy, consider that there is more at stake here than
Y-
Karen Reid.
So let me ask you this question. On the one side, I feel like there is either like the deep misogyny of like
Mm,
hating on women and wanting them to be guilty of the worst things. On the flip side of that, there is the we just want to presume this person is innocent and get on that bandwagon of she couldn't possibly have done it. The Turtle Boy thing to me feels like that, and that sort of like mob mentality. But also it has elements of that. There's always a conspiracy. When in doubt, it's a conspiracy. It's the entire Boston and Canton police force conspiring to frame this woman. I feel like some of those things just play into these bigger tropes of how a lot of people react to these kinds of crimes. You're either like, because she's a woman, you're going to base
mm,
your opinion on that, or because the Boston police are involved, you think the Boston police are
yeah.
inherently corrupt, you're going to think, well, they must have done it because they are always the criminals. Or you think the police can do no wrong, therefore the police couldn't possibly have done it. I feel like a lot of that is at play here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that can be said for a lot of what's going on in the media everywhere today. I mean, there's so much wrong happening everywhere at the
Sure.
moment. But I do think that the media have to take accountability for the fact that they're playing up the emotional heartstrings. They are emphasizing the worst of every part of every story, which is not helpful. It is not. Obviously, it's important to highlight the people who are impacted when wrong is done against them. But it's also important that, that the population understand that every instance with a police officer doesn't mean that the police officers are inherently bad in that instance, or every instance with a woman doesn't mean that woman is inherently good or inherently bad, or every instance with a young black man doesn't mean that they're inherently the bad person in this situation, or the victim in this situation. Like, we have to stop with this idea that there is like a clear version of a story, we need to take a breath, and the media need to pause on pushing all that on us. I think they push it on everyone, and I think social media pushes it on people all day long, and it can be hard to take a step back from it.
I think that's well said. I think because you're right, because it's incredibly reductive. I mean, we were talking about this way back a few weeks ago when we were talking about Matthew Shepard being like a perfect victim.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're going to keep coming back to that, because it is Karen Reed either sort of like a victim here. Well, okay, so maybe she comes across as unlikable or unsympathetic. Therefore, does that make her guilty? Like,
Exactly.
no, it's not as simple as that. It like
Yeah,
people want it
and
to be simpler than reality is.
but I think, and that's what social media tries to do. I feel like it tries to create these simple stories out of these really complicated situations, and they're not simple. And you can't have a very easy a villain and a victim. Like, that's not generally what happens in these stories. It's not as simple as Snow White and the Witch. It just isn't. And it's never going to be. Life isn't as clear cut as that. And
Well,
if we keep pushing that, we're never going to be able to appreciate the critical thinking that goes into all of this. And I just think, I don't know, it's just this case kind of epitomizes that, I think.
hey, sort of related. One of the things I want to say, I want to get your take on this, is I feel like, I guess kind of to that point, the hosts of this podcast, I thought, were remarkably well balanced, asked good questions, were candid about times they just didn't know the answer, and tried to present this in kind of a very sober, researched way, but like research with limitations. Whereas like we know this, we don't know that, or I couldn't find that. I'm going to say that openly. I'm not going to just offer conjecture. What did you think of that? What did you think of the hosts?
Yeah, I thought that was really good. I always like when people aren't like feigning knowledge in subjects. I always appreciate people saying, I don't know, maybe we'll find out. Let's like pause on that or come back to that or whatever. I like the honesty of that. Yeah, no, I thought that was good. I definitely thought, I didn't realize they had both got such strong backgrounds in criminology. That's pretty cool. I know they mentioned, one of the hosts, I don't know which one, was mentioning maybe needing to take some time out if the case went to trial within the school or the academic year. So that's interesting. Yeah, no, I did like them. I thought they did approach it well. I would like to listen to at least one more.
Okay.
To get more of a feeling for the vibes. I felt like the storytelling was good. Like the balance of like telling the Karen Reed story and getting through the facts in a way that was coherent and concise, and, you know, we could follow along, and I thought that was good. And the back and forth, the questioning was good. I thought they lacked some vibes. I thought their back and forth when they were trying to be candid or jovial, like at the start and at the end, was very stiff or forced.
Let me ask you this. Would you go deeper? Like, would you listen to more things about this crime? Like, do you want to know more about this crime? Or do you feel like you know everything that you want to know about it?
Do I want to listen to more? Sure, maybe. Like, if I'm on a long flight and I need to put something in my ears, like as background, maybe. But I don't think I'm like, oh my God, Jeff, we need a whole series on this.
Because there's like an HBO series on this. There's Dateline cover. I mean, every show basically has covered this case.
And maybe that's kind of what happens with me sometimes. I'm like,
push it away.
It's a little bit like,
It's how I am with Taylor Swift.
Because everyone likes her. You're like,
Too popular.
No, I need to not.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, I just want to mention, if you have episodes of Women in Crime that you think we should listen to, or if you have other stories about Karen Reed that you think would help us learn more about this case, leave a comment, let us know. Also, just your thoughts on our show. If you think we're super wrong about the Karen Reed case, let us know in the comments. We love to hear your opinions. What do you think? Do you think she did it? Do you think it was a conspiracy? What do you think of Turtle Boy? We didn't talk about the text message about how long does it take someone to die in the cold, but
that was
let us know.
So bizarre.
Super bizarre.
Do
How do
you
they
know what I'm
not
really
know?
intrigued about?
What?
I am really intrigued about the fact that they said there was experts who said that it might just be your web page that's open. That is baffling
Bullshit.
to me because when I go into my history, I can
Has
see
timestamps.
a web page. Yeah.
When you search for something, when you click a button, that's logged.
Yeah.
That's logged. You know this to be true. Anyway, just a reminder, go to patreon.com/so-much-crime, so little time. Do you know we have like 4 more hours on Karen Reed on our Patreon? That may or may not be true, but it may be true. The only way to find out, go over to patreon.com/so-much-crime, so little time. What I can guarantee you is true is that you'll get extra clips from our time machine, episodes like this one that are out early, bonus content. Maybe it's 12 more hours on Karen Reed. Maybe we did a live stream during the second Karen Reed trial. You don't know. Go over and check it out.
There's also like a
outtakes.
whole section where you can just listen to me and not have to listen to him babble on. But either way, you can decide what you want to listen to if you go over to patreon.com/so-much-crime, so little time. Thanks for supporting.
We're coming back on Thursday with another preview, and we'll take another trip in the time machine.
We'll introduce a crime and get ready to listen to the story before coming back with a recap like this one to discuss.
That's the next So Much Crime.
So little time.
So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of Mind Glove Media. The executive producer is Paxton Caloriso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Our theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show on your podcast app. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.